Hello and welcome back to the color organization. We're going to be going through this free document that the link is in the description box. And I've covered before of all these great binders and all that kind of thing, but this is just, you don't need that. We're going to go through how to make a budget on one page that will allow you to also save money and have bills not creep up on you. And this goes step by step through, and we're going to go through it, but this goes step by step explaining how to do what to put where. All right, so let us jump in. I better just put this over here so it doesn't make every noise under the sun. We're going to put this. Didn't think that through. Here, kitty, hold that. Okay. So we just start at the beginning, which is to start with think big at the front. The major categories, such as food, health, household, transportation, whatnot. Just think major categories. And for some of those, you might just put the amount straight in there without any subcategories. But once you have some basic overarching categories, you can add additional subcategories. Like under food, you have both dining and groceries. So the first thing to do, because this can seem a little overwhelming, just fill in what you can. Just start with what you already know. Maybe you know what your mortgage or rent is right up the top of the bat, or whatever one of these you know already. Just fill in what you can, and then you can look at your records, your checking account statement or credit card bill to fill in the rest of your bills as best you can. And don't be afraid to use a pencil when you're setting these out, rearranging things. The first one you make will end up being kind of messy. That's fine. That's why on this page, we'll get to that. On this page back here, you can print out multiple copies of this until you figure out where you want to put everything. So that's here. Just end up writing out the categories and figuring out how much you want to budget. All right, take your time. It may take time to find out everything you're paying for. Be patient and kind to yourself. If there's one thing I want to point out in this, please listen to that part. All right, so then we go on to the next step. For annual bills. This is a month. People are going to use different pay periods, but we're just going to pretend you're doing a monthly budget. So when you have an annual bill that's going to come up in the future, then you need to take that amount. In this case, this is $88 right there and right here. And then you just divide it by 12. And I explain here how a lot of people will round up to the nearest dollar for this budget to make their lives easier, but also once you pay the bill, you might have a few dollars left over you can put into savings. But you don't have to do that, of course. But this explains how to break down the whatever annual bills or quarterly bills, break those down so that you can put a more manageable number in this budget column for annual bills. All right. All right. So this can be a little bit more. Bear with me here. This can seem a little more complicated, but once you've done it, you'll understand. And this is what I was talking about for these back here. All right. So we broke down the annual bills is say into 12 on the last page, but some annual bills come due at different times. And if you're just starting your budget, you might need to add up the amount you would have saved by now if you had started setting money aside from the last time the bill was due. So let's say that on January 1st, I've got a bill for $144. And I bill paid $144. And that means the balance, the amount of money I've set aside, is down to zero. So then in my January budget, I would set aside $12, have a balance of $12. In February, I'd set aside another $12 and have $24. And on, setting aside that $12 each month. And this will tell you how much you should have set aside at any point during the year, so that when this bill comes due again, you have enough money to cover it. So these larger bills are more manageable and they don't hit you out of the blue. So let's just say you're starting out, and let's say it's August. By this point, if you had been setting aside $12 each month, by August, you should have $96 set aside. And I have that right here, saying this is the budget and this is the August balance. Budget, setting aside $12, which means the balance of the amount you should have set aside is 96. So from that point on, for September and October and November, if you set aside 96, then the following months you can just set aside $12 each month, and then that bill is taken care of. Now, if you don't, maybe you don't have $96 right here in August, and you're like, I might be able to swing a lower amount, but I can't come up with 96 now. So in that case, just simplify it so that just write down the number of months left until it's due and divide that amount by the number of months. So in this case, I would need to set aside $36 each month, September, October, November, and then December, so that I still have that $144 available on January 1st. And I just gave this example up here. This is that you have the budget and then the balance. And the balance, this for things that aren't annual, just regular parts of your budget, they're just, you budget and then that's what your balance is, because you just refresh that every month. So there are two different kinds of things you're going to write under balance. Annual bills or quarterly bills that are broken down, and things that you refresh each month. And then you're just going to add them up at the bottom. All right, well, let us continue. Because here, we're going to have a look at that budget and the balance, but really we're going to look at the budget. So hopefully by now you've written out all of your categories, your subcategories, all of these categories, and you've got what you think you should be able to spend, to set aside, and you get this total budget for the month right here. Well, that's one particular number here. Well, make sure that your income can cover that. So just write down, for example, this is the February budget, the income, and perhaps you might be using, say, January money that you made in January. If you do your budget very, very early in the month or later on, but whatever it is, you take your whatever sources of income you have, add those up. In this example here, I assumed that, just going to pretend you were paid on January 31st, so that this is the amount of money you have to work with in February. So this is $3,238, but my income for the month is only $3,200. So I'm $38 short. So in that case, I need to go back through my budget and take $38 out of this somewhere. And then everything will balance. Your income is different from this balance for the month. This is the amount you need to have available. For example, in your checking account. Because this higher number, in this case, $5,600 and some dollars, this is your budget for the month plus money you have set aside for other annual bills, at least what you've saved up so far. So it's a good idea to keep at least this amount available, for example, in a checking account. But this is your budget, and this is going to be related to your income directly. All right, moving on. Then we get, this is to me, this is kind of the fun stuff, which is at the end of the month, do you have any money to set aside that you can put into savings? And it can be a lot, it can be a little, any amount is good. So this is the final this is the final page, the final, these are the categories that you'll see at the end. So now we're starting to put it in the actual sheet. So you have all your categories here. At the end of the month, how much money do you have left in each of these categories? For example, here I spent all of my grocery money. And so any left over is zero. Say Fitbit here, my balance, I've got $72 there, but that's being saved for an annual bill. So there's nothing left over there. But let's say down here, I have $24 left over in household at the end of the month. Well, that $24 can be listed right there. Under beauty, $4. So that $4 goes here. And strangely enough, I have $42 left over for cats and whatnot because I'd been stocking up earlier in the year. So these amounts of money I can set aside, and I know I can set it aside. So once you've done that for all of your categories, you come down here and you just add all of that up. In this case, it's $233. So then what you do, add to savings funds. You decide the things you want to save up for. And under savings funds, you list them here. And you can save up for anything. It could be any of these basics things here, a buffer, dental, health, or it could be saving up for an emergency fund. It could be anything. But what you can do, quite often I actually budget money for each of these savings funds, but if there's any money left over here, I can break that up between the different funds. And as long as this number equals this number, so I've saved $233 and I'm putting $233 in the savings funds, then I can add that money and increase all of this savings, which is a good thing. So possibilities are endless. How do you decide how much goes in each? There are many, many ways. You can double the budgeted amount you were going to put in there anyway. You could focus on one fund you think is a priority. You could, there are people who roll dice. They'll like break a certain, whatever money they have, they'll break it into $5 or $10, whatever. They'll roll a die and have each one of these be, like if they have 6 funds, then every time they roll a number 1, then that amount, one of those bits will go into the buffer. I mean, just there's so many different ways you can do this. So just roll with it. Sorry. Okay, moving on. Okay, so this is scrunched because, a second here, whoops, that's going to be the blank version of this so that you can write in there. And this is that, but it's just scrunched over a little bit so I could put some explanation here on the side. So I make this out every month. Go in, end of the month balance. What have I got? And what do I have either set aside for future bills or just left over in a category? Is there any leftover that I can put into savings that I'm not rolling over? So I list those here and I get a total here. That's that $233 that we used in the example. So then add it to savings. All that $233 broken down. So then we just need to do some basic math because this is my February budget. That was the end of January, what was left over. This is the February budget, the original budget we set up. So we do math. For example, here on this line, this is an annual bill. We currently have $72 set aside at the end of the month. There's none left over because we're saving up for the bill. We have budgeted $8 for this month to add to that, which adds up to $80. So $72 minus 0 plus 8 equals 80. And I explain that all here, what each part of that is. And you just go down all the way here. So household is $24. Is any of that left over that I want to put into savings? Yes, $24, which would leave nothing in this category. But I've got budgeted $300 for the month. So I put $300 in that category and I end up with $300 in the balance. This is only different slightly down here in the savings funds because you're adding rather than subtracting. So for example, in the buffer, at the beginning of the month, I had $60. I was able to save $20 that I'm going to put into this. I'm going to add to this buffer. Plus I had $20 budgeted. So 60 plus 20 plus 20 is 100. So going into February, the balance, money I have budgeted for these categories and also the total amount of money I need to have set aside for future bills or money I've been saving up. I get a grand total here of that, and then I'm done. This was my budget. This is the budget for the month. This is the total amount that I need to have in my checking account. And now that's it. I know what I spent. I know what I have. And I have built savings. I've actually put money into savings. And this gets easier every month because, for example, I just keep this on a clipboard and it's easy to use. So I just fill this out every month. How much money do I have left in each of these categories? And I just fill it out. And then once I'm done, I'm done. This is all you need. You just need a piece of paper. Maybe you might need 2 pieces of paper if you have if you track a whole lot of categories, and that's fine. But it's still the same principle. I can fit all of my stuff on one page. Now, normally on the channel, when I'm working out the balance, when I'm setting money aside, all of this kind of thing, I use these A6 binders. What this A6 binder, the reason that I use this is because if I go in here, and truly what isn't measured isn't managed. If I go in here to, let's say, groceries, this, I'm able to just grab this. When I go grocery shopping, I write it down. Or if I'm adding money that's budgeted, that's plus, and gives me, so I had $0.36 left at the end of last month. I have $300 budgeted. Now the balance here is $300. And so I keep a running total here. So as the amount I spend the groceries, my grocery money, I know how much I have left for the month. You don't have to do it that closely, and you don't have to do it in a binder like this. I just put that in the wrong place. Let me put this here. Because the last page in the free printout, linked below, is, do you remember back here when we worked out the annual bills? Here. Do you remember this part? Where we figured out the bill and then how much we needed to set aside throughout the month? And then where are we in the year? How much should we have set aside? Well, the last page, couple of pages in this are well hidden. I'm showing that example again here. And then there's space to break down your own bills, or if you want to just track your spending that month, you could write it down there. This here is just this here. Same thing. That's all I'm doing to show the example. So basically it's the same thing. Obviously these numbers are a little different, but it's the same process. I can show you very quickly the other thing that I do, because I just find it fun. The reason that I do the binder version of this, I always fill out this sheet and then I deal with the binders. I've got these two binders. That is for bills. This is for savings funds. So for example, I have a health fund here, that kind of got stuff here. And then not only do I have a sheet where I'm tracking how much I've managed to save here, but these are savings challenges. So as I'm able to come up with maybe health savings, maybe $50 there. Every $50 I add to this fund, I just fill out one of these little trackers, and it gives me a real sense of that I'm making progress, because otherwise it can just feel very amorphous. And no, you don't have to do this, but if you see me doing my regular cash stuffing videos, this is what I'm doing. I'm setting aside, making sure I'm setting aside the budget money. I'm making sure that all these balance, this final balance here is what's in these binders. So that's really all there is to it. I do hope that this helps you. And let me know if you have any questions, or if there's something here I need to make better or clearer, please. All right, so that is that. Thank you so much for watching. And put this down here. There we are. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.